Namaste and welcome to Urban Chatterati. This is Abhinav Prakash. And today I'm joined by Alexei Arora to discuss the recent banning of the account of Ravi Shankar Prasad, the IT Minister of India, by the Twitter. So, Alexei, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Abhinav. It's great to be here again.
Thank you. Alexei, we have seen that the account of Ravi Shankar Prasad, the IT Minister of the India, the world's largest democracy, blah, blah, was held, in fact, blocked by the Twitter for almost an hour. And there was a threat of suspension as well, because apparently some copyright issue was involved in America. What do you make out of it?
So definitely, I think this is, Twitter basically appeared in front of India's parliamentary IT panel as well, and explicitly said it is not going to follow the laws of India. It has its own sort of principles and moral guidelines or whatever. And this was just an exercise of the fact that we are not going to follow the laws. It has been, a long time since your laws have come into effect. We have said we're not going to follow it, and we're still operating in your country. You haven't done anything. So it's just a way of flexing that, look who's in charge. And the thing is, we are a market of 1.4 billion people. And honestly, not a lot of Indians are on Twitter. It's just a very fast growing market as well. So in fact, they need us more than we need them, and it was best exemplified by Nigeria. They banned Twitter. Well, what happened? Nothing. I mean, Nigeria is doing perfectly fine. They've taken coup.
Yeah. So, but it brings to the point larger question. The Twitter in this case is not saying that they are going to implement their own laws in India. They're saying they're implementing American laws with respect to it.
So funnily enough, Twitter does not follow American laws as well. Twitter is like, I think I said in my last episode with you, Twitter is not bound by the American Constitution, because if it was, Donald Trump would not have been guarantees the right to freedom of speech, no matter what the views are. There are no hate speech laws in the United States. It is you're legally free to shout or chant whatever you want. It is guaranteed by the First Amendment. And the suspension of Trump, therefore, goes directly against that principle of American First Amendment and American Constitution. So I think if that is what Twitter is saying, that, we're following the land of America, the land of free speech, it is definitely a lie, because they're not doing that at all. They are not bound by American law. They are a private corporation, and they're bound by the standards they set on their own. Like, the saying goes, sovereign is he who decides the exception.
Yeah. So, but here you tweeted something that, the Indian government can try all it wants, but it will be in the vain, because you cannot implement Indian sovereign laws on the American corporations, right? Are you saying that this is some kind of, let's say, new East India company which is coming to India and basically saying, do whatever you can, we will not follow your law, and if you push us too hard, we will call the big guns?
Exactly, because see, the issue is that for India, the issue is that we have essentially regulations that we want companies to follow, and it's not like it's impossible. These are not out of the world regulations. A lot of other companies are following, companies like LinkedIn and so on. They say they're fine with it. And these regulations are completely sane. And the fact is, Twitter is saying we are not going to follow it because apparently it contradicts their own principles and so on. This has happened to us in 1978 as well. I think some of your viewers might remember or might have studied George Fernandez, the industry minister under Morarji Desai. And he was a great socialist, a great trade unionist. And essentially he banned IBM and he banned Coca-Cola. What that resulted in, because IBM and Coca-Cola were not willing to follow Indian regulations. But at the same time, a lot of companies were willing to follow regulations and they were listed in the Bombay Stock Exchange and everything was fine with that. But Coca-Cola and IBM were the ones who were not willing to follow these regulations. So they were naturally kicked out because we had the guts to do that. And what did that result in? It resulted in the development of India's own IT industry. We had semiconductor plants back in 1984. We started one in Mohali, it burned down, but we were very forward thinking when it came to IT during that time. So, and also, drinks like Thumbs Up, which are miles better than Coke in any way, shape or form. Thumbs Up is ultimate. We got Thumbs Up because we kicked out Coca-Cola. So it's not impossible, we have to realize what our national interests are. And if anything contradicts our national interests, well, guess what? We are a country of 1.4 billion people with a thriving IT industry. We can make alternatives. We already have alternatives, and we can definitely implement these alternatives. So it is not a question of, how. It is a question of when. When are we going to do it? We have the ability. When are we going to exercise that ability? So that's what the main thing is. And the other issue, I think, is because, the Ravi Shankar Prasad has not been very efficient in sort of dealing with Twitter. He can go a lot much harder than he is right now. He's still saying, no, you should please follow the law, please follow the law. The issue is the opposition is not saying that, Ravi Shankar Prasad is doing an inefficient job. The opposition is outright with big tech because it believes in the so-called values of universal liberal values and free speech and so on, something even Twitter does not believe in. So the issue is that we have an opposition that is not critiquing the government for its inefficiencies. It is actually siding with the foreign agents who wish to undermine our national sovereignty. So the problem is twofold. The problem is that we lack the willpower to actually go against it. And it's like we have the historical precedents to do so. It's just that we lack the willpower today. But also our opposition is filled with just some crazy people who do not value the sovereignty of India because they value some insane and absurd and opaque liberal universal values and so on.
Yeah, but I don't think they're crazy because if you look at the history of India, you always have had these collaborators. Yep. East India Company won India because of these collaborators. So
yes.
I think it's a long-running Indian trend. But coming to Indian opposition, right? So they're saying that this is the case of free speech. They're saying that the government is trying to control the social media companies and deny the people their right to privacy, right to anonymity. I don't know what right is that, but they're saying that. And also the government is trying to control the narrative because to stifle the voices of dissent. Why you are against it?
So, I think that the government, first of all, if the opposition, which, predominantly the Congress party is very concerned about so-called free speech, it should look at its own past and see that Nehru was the one who destroyed India's First Amendment in our constitution. And he was the one who actually destroyed and brought about the destruction of actual possible free speech in this country. The reason we have any semblance of free speech is because politicians are willing to gloss it over. Any ruling party that comes to power has actually no legal obligation to enforce this free speech because it is just to show that, we are a democracy and so on. It is to make people outside of India look like they're happy. But in my view, I think what comes first is national sovereignty. You may have problems with the law. I haven't, gone very deep into the law myself. I know the basics of the law. And to me, it seems fine, But the issue here is not whether the law is good or not. You can debate that in parliament. The issue is, it is the law and people are not following it. What do? Do you side with the criminals or do you side with your own country? And that's, I think, the problem. And like you said, it is a historical precedent in our country because we have always had, collaborators who saw their own personal benefit instead of the benefit of the national homeland and so on. So this is a recurring theme and history repeats itself, I guess.
But it's very strange that you call yourself a communist, you call yourself a Marxist, Alexei, but you are here
Marxist. I'm not a communist. I am a Marxist because I analyze Marxism, but I do not necessarily agree with the end goals of communism.
Yeah. Okay. So you call yourself a Marxist, and here you are kind of defending the so-called fascist government in Delhi instead of siding with the liberal opposition to it. I mean, how do you explain your position?
Well, firstly, because you have
Your stands are full of that toxic nationalism, toxic masculinity, national laws and national days. What is national? How do you explain
Yeah.
your position to the people?
So I think you have to first understand that we are not necessarily even dealing with, it's not a battle of India versus America at all. It is a battle of India as a country, as a concept versus corporations. And you very well know how Marxists, especially the communists who are very opposed to corporations in India, they are so it's a natural position more me to be against American corporations as well in that sense. But no, I think in a sense you have to realize that India's national sovereignty was very hard won, and a lot of people from all across the spectrum participated in our great freedom struggle. So there have been many attempts to subdue us to countless powers from time to time. So I think we have to understand that to first establish, if one wants to establish communism, they have to realize you have to first get to the stage of capitalism. India is not even a capitalist country. So I am defending India not only because I am a nationalist, but I am defending India because we do not have the stage to achieve the sort of goals that the United States has achieved the capitalist dominance the United States has achieved. So for me, it is defending the people of India who first need to rise up against, they need to rise up to defend their own selves. So it's not a very contradictory position. And in fact, communists around the world are very favorable towards defending China against American imperialism and so on. So it's not that, nationalism is antithetical to that. It is just that some people are just nationalist for another country, but not their own.
But Alexei, you said that George Fernandez banned IBM, Coca-Cola. But what is the cost? What is the price of that? Many people are saying that because of that anti-business, anti-corporate mentality of the 1970s, that we are suffering even till date. India also banned TikTok. And, it's good on paper to say we are a great IT power, we can build something new. But we have not been able to build anything which can compete with the TikTok. In fact, that place of TikTok in India has been taken by the Instagram Reel and the Facebook. Why do you think that banning Twitter will get us or bring any benefit to us?
See, firstly, I think we have to understand that, and this is in the sense I consider myself a statist. I am an advocate of state planning, but I'm not I'm not a communist in that I want to nationalize everything in this country. I advocate the states should guide the markets like they're doing in China, like they're doing in Vietnam, like they did in South Korea, and so on. So it's an East Asian model of it. And I think this is where my sort of progress vision for India lies, because we need the state to understand that there are some sectors of the economy the state must guide towards development. You cannot rely on the free market itself. I was mentioning to you previously the example of a semiconductor factory we had in Mohali. If that factory and the semiconductor industry was allowed to develop, we would be this hub of semiconductor manufacturing, and the entire semiconductor crisis that we're now seeing with Taiwan and the possibility of Chinese invasion of Taiwan, we would necessarily not be seeing it because we would be the semiconductor superpower of the world. But the issue is that after the factories, caught fire, the factory was there in 1984 and the factory caught fire in 1989. The issue is no one thought of bringing it back because by 1991, we had IMF reforms that suggested that the optimal outcome for the Indian economy is to accept the notion of free markets. Free markets will guide us to goodwill. What did that do? Did that boost our exports? To an extent. But what it did was it expanded our imports to a substantial degree. And the rational path of the free market is if you don't have a homegrown industry, you just import. So there had been no effort on the part of the government, any government or any party for that matter, to revive the manufacturing because that requires the state. And, I'm not saying we're completely Ronald Reagan or Margaret Thatcher. We still have that sort of expansion of the welfare state, may it be Modi, may it be Congress, parties are dedicated to that. But what we need is an expansion of the state towards guiding the optimum results of the market. This is what I believe we need. And so, for example, we have coup. This was the result of the market and so on. But, we don't have semiconductor manufacturing. We don't have the option of a replacement towards TikTok. What we need is the state to say that, these are areas of national security. These are areas of national importance. And this is where we believe a good sector of the economy should be focused on ensuring our national sovereignty and the development of our own industry. And this could actually start with the development of semiconductors as well, for example.
But what can the Indian government do to the Twitter now? They have been doing it for very long. So they have touched the account of Home Minister. They have touched the account of Indian Army in Kashmir many a times. Now they have taken down or blocked the account of the IT Minister himself. They're refusing to appear in the police case for inciting violence in UP. Twitter no longer has the status of intermediary as well. What are the options in the front of Indian government now? What do you think? Let's say a communist government, let's say if you were in the government of that, that party, what would you have done?
I would have banned them, seriously. We've given Twitter too many chances. We have asked them to come in front of the parliament, and they said it openly to our lawmakers, they will not follow our country's law. We have given them, concessions. We have waited for a very long time. We said that, instead of banning them, we said we're going to remove your intermediary status. Did that change anything? It honestly didn't, because, Ravi Shankar Prasad is banned today. We saw that, So Twitter doesn't care. They care about power. And if you want to exercise your sovereignty, if you want to show power, you show power, and you do that by banning Twitter. We have an alternative. It's not like we don't have an alternative. There are other Western companies that are willing to comply with the Indian law and the Indian constitution. And we also have coup. So it's not like we are begging for an alternative. The alternatives are there. The issue is the willpower isn't there. And that's what we need right now.
Yeah, but you said that the Twitter doesn't care about Indian law, and Twitter is not a very large company. It's not even a profit-making company. As of now, I think it's bleeding money. Why the Twitter is hell-bent on antagonizing the largest market on the earth? Because China will never allow them. So India is the largest market for them. Why is Twitter on a suicide path in India? Or do you think there's something else going on?
It is, like I said, it is a sort of mode of domination. That is what it is, because almost every sort of, if you understand America not as a state, but as a bunch of corporations exercising their monopoly guarded by a military, everything starts to make sense. If you think of Twitter as an extension of the American state, it all starts to make sense. It is the American state, exercising its own powers. It is exercising its own hegemony that it won after the collapse of the Soviet Union. So that is simply what it is, and obviously it's not like Twitter has the most users from India. India is a growing market. India is not Twitter's biggest market. That is still the United States. And in the United States, if you are a conservative, or if you are like a very, very far Marxist, or if you're basically not a liberal, they will kick you out of Twitter. And most of the people now on Twitter are, predominantly liberal and predominantly, to the liberal left. So they have already cornered their market over there. The issue is that, they have the power and they want to exercise it. That's basically all it is. And we have to show that, we are a nation. We are not a shopping mall like America is. We are still a nation that represents its people. We still have sort of democratic values or whatever, but ultimately we are a nation, and we must guard our own people's sovereignty, which is something we have to do. And, we have the alternatives. It's just that we aren't doing it.
Very important point, Alexei, that power is meant to be exercised. And
yes,
country should exercise power. In this case, India should exercise power and not bother about what the world would say or whether we will slide in some democracy index or another. But thank you, Alexei, for your time and for your commentary on the recent developments in India. I think the game will become, in fact, game has become much more interesting. Let's see how it unfolds. Thanks a lot, Alexei.
Thank you, Mr. Prakash.
And thank you, audience, for listening to us. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and also join as a member to support the channel. Thank you.